their rocks.
Hey guys, welcome to Wild Hope Homestead. This is the next part of our South Island, New Zealand holiday adventure. In this episode we're still in and around Twizel, getting out and about for some more adventures, so come along with us and explore this beautiful part of New Zealand. On our next full day in Twizel we went to Lake Ruataniwha in the morning, which is a man-made lake with an interesting story.
I thought it was a black stone, but it's actually a black pine cone.
Ah. It wasn't actually supposed to be turned into a lake, but while they were doing works there with the dams and everything for the hydroelectric scheme, the guy who was in charge decided that they were going to make a lake there because they were working in the area already, and he may not have exactly had permission to do that from the government, but it happened. What are you guys up to?
Table or something.
And I think, well, even though he had to resign, I think everyone's glad that it happened now, because it's a beautiful spot to wander around and spend time in, but also it's, I think, one of our main rowing centres in New Zealand. There's a rowing club there and a lot of rowing stuff that goes on. Just down the road we went to the High Country Salmon Farm. If you like salmon, Twizel's a good place to be because they have all the canals and a couple of salmon farms, and obviously it's just beautiful salmon, which we did have salmon while we were there, so that was excellent. Can you see the fish?
Yeah.
We got to watch some people catching a salmon. That's an experience you can pay to do, but mostly we just went there to look at the fish and feed the fish, which made them all jump up out of the water, and that was fun to watch.
One at a time.
Is she watching? Then we drove to the Clay Cliffs, which is in Omarama. That's a little bit south of Twizel. The Clay Cliffs didn't used to be that well known the last couple of times Steve and I have been there, but they're a lot more popular now, and I guess it helps that they've improved the road a lot. The 2 times that Steve and I went there when we were living in the South Island in Christchurch, one time we were in our car and one time we were in a camper van. It was actually the time we went when we were in our car that we got stuck on the road. In this area, well, and probably anywhere in the high country, when there's a lot of rain, streams can easily overflow. Streams can just start up in random places and flow through these country tracks, and that's what happens around the Clay Cliffs. So there was a particularly muddy patch, and I guess we didn't realise that the car got stuck in there. And at this time there was nobody around. The Clay Cliffs are actually on private land, but it's a huge high country station, and there was nobody in sight. Oh, I don't know what we would have done if we had stayed stuck, but thankfully Steve managed to find a piece of wood lying nearby and wedge that behind the wheel and get us out of there in our 2-wheel drive car. You can see partway walking along the track that they've had to change the track at some point because there's been a really big washout through where the old track was. Here I am looking down into it. Pretty cool, mate. Whoa. Yeah, watch your foot.
Barney, you want to stand with Daddy here?
It broke.
The Clay Cliffs are, I think, one of the most spectacular natural things you can see around Canterbury. They're just towering hills and spires of limestone or sandstone that are just such interesting shapes, and just the way that they kind of form this little kind of cave area that makes you feel quite small, but in a good way. after the clay cliffs, on our way back to Twizel, we went to Lake Ohau, and that was just as beautiful in its own way. It was a good day for it. It wasn't very windy that day. It was quite still, and it was very, very quiet there. It's just really nice to be able to play in the rocks. The kids loved playing around the rocks, and we made some rock sculptures and just enjoyed quiet time there under these big looming hills. We were at the top end of the lake, whereas most people would carry on and go a bit further down, but there were hardly any cars anyway.
The black ones are great. Rocks can be our souvenirs. Want to come look at some of our rocks?
Is it your collections? When we went back into Twizel, we stopped at the work machines. These work machines were all involved in the early days of Twizel, working on the hydroelectric dams and canals and everything. And then there was a little information station where you could learn all about Twizel's history.
Ooh, the river. Lake Pukaki. Lake Gorge Scott.
We learnt quite a lot about Twizel's history on this holiday, both from what we read in there and hearing stories from my uncle and auntie. I found it fascinating. Twizel's not a particularly old town. It was started in the late 1960s to house all the workers who were working on the hydroelectric scheme. It cost a crazy amount of money, and they built or bought in hundreds of houses to house all the workers and their families. The plan was to actually bulldoze Twizel once they had finished the works, which seems pretty crazy. And so towards the end of things, a lot of the residents did not want the town to be bulldozed. So they fought to keep it, and eventually the government and the two district councils decided that it could stay, and I think everyone's glad that it did stay. Thanks for joining us in today's vlog, guys. Choose to grow hope, and we'll see you next time. Bye.